Sure. So we're going live. Yeah, my sister-in-law is down in St. Pete. She's got a brewery down there, St. Pete Brewing. So
Yeah, that place is awesome.
whenever we're allowed to get back out again, definitely going. So, excuse me. Hey, Florida Wrestling Room, welcome. Here I am again with another one of the community here. So obviously we've been calling this Step to the Line. So we've got the Palm Harbor coaches. I sound like I was from Boston there. The Palm Harbor coaches.
I'm
Harbour coaches. Coming from the coast over here, we've got Nick and Matt here. And they're on. They want to talk about Palm Harbor Wrestling. They're really growing a good program there. They had 3 state placers this year, which is huge. So congratulations to them on that. They also have a nice big wrestling club down there that they're growing, Canes Wrestling Club. So to add to all the amazing things going on the Gulf Coast for wrestling, here are another couple of guys. First of all, how are things going? How's the family? And doesn't this suck?
It sucks. Me and Nick are pretty close. Our kids are in the other room playing right now. We're both teachers, so we're both currently employed. My wife works in the medical field, so she's doing okay. So we're just hanging in there and trying to support the community as much as we can.
Daily, we have conversations like, if we go one more day without wrestling, we go one more week without that's the attitude.
Oh yeah. Palmer was like, I got over it. I threw a mat down in the garage and I'm rolling around.
I understand it.
I have a 3-year-old daughter, and we have wrestling practice every night. I don't know how much she likes it, but we do it.
So Nick and Matt, talk a little bit about yourselves first. Let us know kind of your wrestling background, and go.
Well, we both are Pinellas County wrestlers. We're both products of Hall of Fame coaches. My coach is Mark Allison, and I wrestled at Dine High School. I got out of high school. I was in the military for 4 years. I was in the Army. Out of the Army, and I started coaching at Dane. I coached there for 8 years, and I've been. This is my first full year at Palm Harbor. I've been involved with the club for a while.
I started in New York when I was really young, like in 4th grade. It's just sort of the culture up there. They pull you out of gym class and they say, hey, here's a flyer, and then the flyer's for a kids club, and that's it. You're a wrestler. You're hooked for life. So I wrestled through elementary school, middle school, and then came to Florida in 2000, and then wrestled for Eastlake. Same deal, Florida guy. Couple seasons in the NCAA. Was really just like the lowest level of college wrestling, but still hard because everybody was good. So some good experience to work with some good coaches that still coach today, like David Mason and Paul Rothenberg over UCF, Jimmy Myers, a couple really great coaches. So we kind of grew up together there. And I've been coaching, started coaching at Anclote, became head coach there, and then met Matt. And he would come over, in the summers, and it's kind of how I met him. And he's just a great coach, man. Happy to have you, Matt.
Man, that's awesome. And we had a couple of New York wrestlers on yesterday that aren't bad, and Julian Ramirez and Yanni D.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah.
I listened while I was working out in the garage today.
Yeah. And so that's awesome. So you guys have started to grow the program now. I didn't remember if you were saying you got the Canes Club where you're up to almost over 50 kids already.
Yeah, it's about 30 to 50 kids. And we have a lot of really awesome parents that are involved with that. I got a bunch of guys that helped me coach it: Tom Major, John Brooks, Matt Samuelson, Travis Bates. Those guys, those are the reason why the club is doing so well. Those dads that are taking kids to tournaments and helping me run practice, helping me with paperwork and providing transportation, stuff like that. So it's really taken off.
And that's great. So tell us, if I'm using like Tampa as my center point, where do I find you guys at?
Upper left by Tarpon Springs. You know where the sponge docks are.
On the North Pinellas County on the West Coast.
Yeah. Okay. So you're going back towards St. Pete.
Actually going more like west. So if you know where Lake Tarpon is, it's a big body of water between Lake Tarpon and the Gulf Coast. That area right there. That's
just on the border of Pasco, pretty close to Pasco County.
Very north county.
Nice. So what's that? 30 minutes?
With traffic, about 45 from Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to get an idea, because I think people know Tampa, St. Pete, the big cities.
Yeah, about an hour from St. Pete.
which is
4 to
good to know
5.
because how many times, guys, as a parent, not as a coach, as a parent, am I going to see family on the Gulf Coast, or am I going to spend the weekend in the Gulf Coast, or
Yeah.
I got to go down there for work or business, and I'm thinking, shit, what am I going to do with my kids? Well, you know what? There's wrestling clubs down there, and one of them is the Canes Wrestling Club on Palm Harbor. So,
Yeah.
hey, swing by, kick the kid out of the car, let him wrestle for a while, and do your thing, and come back. But there's rooms down there, so take them down. So, talk a little bit about Canes Wrestling Club and Palm Harbor High School wrestling team. And I know mostly you want to focus on the club because that'll be what you're building to kind of feed into your high school.
Well, I think the philosophies of the club and the high school are pretty similar. We have like I said, an amazing group of parents with the high school team, parents, administrators, teachers. Nick and I are both lucky enough to work at the school. So I think all of that is building a really cool culture of wrestling at Palm Harbor.
Yeah. Kids are excited about it.
It's an exciting sport at the school. The kids are amazing. And we, as far as numbers wise, we built a pretty large team. We got 50 to 55 kids on JV, about 30 on varsity. So it's really just amazing. The whole school's come together and kind of wrapped around wrestling. We have a football program that is hugely supportive.
Super supportive, and that's real rare to get, man, especially in Florida when you're fighting over athletes.
You don't have to tell me. I'm trying to beg. I've been trying to beg the football coach. Come on,
Our heavyweight, he placed 5th this year at the state tournament. Grant, he'll be a senior next year. He's a kid that could be easily swayed by a football coach that, hey, you're a blue chip offensive lineman.
Get you a full ride somewhere. Don't wrestle. You'll get hurt.
Stay in the weight room. But our coach, Coach Mulaney, he's a great guy. He's from Michigan. Probably came up around wrestling. He really pushes every one of his athletes to wrestle.
And even the assistant football coach is the same way. Coach LePayne, some of the strength and conditioning guys, Ryan Bott, they know what wrestling can do for a football player. So they're not shy about, hey, we have a limited number of athletes here, but let's get him to be active year round.
Yes, which is insane because the best offensive lineman on the team, or at least the most technical, was our heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
And he was wrestling 220. Yeah, he couldn't quite get to 220, and he couldn't get down to 195.
Yeah,
he just kind of
hit
that one point where he couldn't get either way. So he's he's the wrestler that became our first state placer.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
Look what football and wrestling did for that kid.
Two sides of the same coin, as they say.
Yeah, so I try to do so. So what does a typical week look like at Canes Club? When you're bringing the kids in, also, do you have different practices as far as like, are there baby canes or whatever you kind of call them? And then you come up
with the
there.
youth club, we have like 2 sides of the room. We have one side, which is either beginner or kind of the younger elementary kids. And that's Coach Tom Major and John Brooks. They run that side. And then you have me, and then there's a ton of coaches in there. Nick, Steve Hall, we've had like Jimmy O'Brien, BB. We have guys like that coming in in the off season. A bunch of alumni that do like the advanced session, and that's mostly middle schoolers, but some elementary kids that have just been in the program for a while. And then we also do like small groups certain days a week. 30, 45 minutes of drilling and live with like the middle schoolers and advanced kids.
Awesome. Now, somebody said here, Jeff and Jessica Basin. My boy Nick, miss your brother.
Jeff Beeson. Yeah, he's one of the only dudes I've ever known that was he was completely shredded, and the Army wanted to kick him out because he didn't fit their physical fitness profile. And he's like, dude, are you serious? He's got a great story. It's awesome. Just to show body composition means nothing on that chart. You cut weight the right way.
So that's awesome. So you do have a small program. You start with the little kids, and you got them coming in. And then you've got your high school program. And then during the summer, talk about, I guess March, the first week of March is states. After that, typically you're going to go to nationals, right?
Yeah.
Virginia Beach.
Last year we had a couple kids on some USA teams. We had
national dual teams.
Had one wrestler compete at Fargo.
So. Awesome. So talk about what your off season looks like with Canes wrestling. So if I'm a Canes wrestler, if I'm a kid in your club, and what type of off-season program are you offering me? Am I going to have the opportunities to travel to big tournaments?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
We do like the regular tour with the more beginner to middle range kids, the Brandon tournaments, the Lake Gibson tournaments, the Springstead tournaments, kind of like within 45 minutes of us. And once they get bought in, that's when the kids start to go to USA States and the rest of the big tournaments around. We had a couple kids go down to state champ camp over the summer. We typically go to Southern Hospitality at Camden County.
Outstanding camp.
Which is a great camp.
Outstanding camp for your money.
And we host like an in-house camp too, which we bring in some of the best clinicians in our area. And
some of the philosophy is like you
Florida
get
Pride.
out of your comfort zone a little bit. So you want to do like a local camp, like a home camp where you kind of know everybody. You went to Birds Camp last year. Great camp. You had such good clinicians there. It was like 3 days. So then you get out of your comfort zone a little bit more. And then finally you're out of state where the kids are a little bit more relying on each other. So they become more of a tight-knit unit, like get them out of their comfort zone where they have to wrestle, because you can fall into habits of, this kid's a funny kid in the room. But when you put him in Georgia with a bunch of kids he doesn't know, or some other state, now they got to fight for their meal a little bit more. So they take it more seriously.
Absolutely. Do you guys go up to Nick Marcus's camp up there at Florida Pride?
A couple kids.
we had a couple kids go. I have brought kids to Florida Pride. I do think there's something to, that's a great camp, but there's something to be getting out of your area and getting out of the state. And like, I like Southern Hospitality because you're seeing kids from Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and, you're kind of away from your element. And that's something that was, my head coach, Mark Allison, who's inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. He really pushed that on us when I was in high school. We always went to an out-of-state camp, and we really bonded as wrestlers.
When you get out, you take the kids, like, I think last year my son got to go to Disney Duels, which was in-state, but that's a huge opportunity there for him to. I think the best thing about that is not the actual matches. The best is that back room where you can just.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have wrestled a whole season in
20 matches or so.
Yeah. And then he got a chance to go to Michigan Grappler.
Yeah. The Grapplers
that a little bit.
Preview.
We had one wrestler go this year, but we're looking to take a group. We had one wrestler go to the Grappler and one wrestler go to Super 32, but we want to bring a bigger group this awesome. Preseason.
So cool. So if I'm a kid out there wanting to get a lot better, and I want an off-season program where I'm not going to see the same kids all the time, I'm going to get myself in front of kids that are better than me and get me better. You guys give that opportunity at the Canes.
Yeah.
And I think that probably the strongest part of our program is me and Matt are really, we see things really similarly. Like it's great to have an assistant coach that really understands the sport. Matt, I learned stuff from him, almost daily. So we have a system that, we kind of plug each other's strengths and weaknesses together so that these kids, they end up with a system and not just a bunch of clinic moves that, they look fancy and they don't work. So we reiterate that. So even though it's the off-season wrestling, it's time to experiment with new moves and new techniques, they're still getting the system that they need from where Matt runs the kids club. He's literally putting the process in these kids' heads so that when they come up through the high school, they already know how to drill. And that is so huge. There's no time wasted in transition.
And on the mental side, I know a lot of these kids are young, so they haven't kind of matured yet. So I know even with my 14-year-old, sometimes I wish he had a little more mental training, but
we all do.
But what do you guys do? Kind of how do you keep these kids grounded? How do you keep them, mentally? Are you guys becoming kind of a parent figure too? They're trusting you in the room.
Well, I think there's two sides to that. I think the room itself does a lot of that. The intensity of our drilling is very intense. The intensity of our live wrestling is very intense. So I think when you drill with intensity and you wrestle live with intensity, the way we do in our room, and I'm sure a lot of other rooms in the state, that's going to build your confidence. And we do a lot of mental exercises. We do we bring a lot of people in the room, and we do a lot of one-on-one conferencing with our kids too, especially before the preseason, talk about goals, and they fill out goal sheets and do a lot of stuff like that.
Man, that's awesome. So you guys are really involved, and that's awesome. And I know the first time at least the first time my kid was in a room like that with the club, it was, he wanted to get off the mat. He wanted to go throw up. He wanted an excuse to go pee. And then all of a sudden about, I don't know, a couple weeks in, you couldn't get him off the mat. You couldn't work him hard enough. You couldn't yell at him loud enough. Like all of a sudden something was like, hey, I want to be that kid, you know? And he started to work a little bit harder and process.
Picked out a role model or something in the room, right? Someone that he wants to be like, someone he wants to emulate.
One thing that I think that maybe not separates us, but one thing, because we have a pretty big school and we have a football program that really supports wrestling, we kind of have two channels of the program. And the first channel is the kids that come from the club, right? That are locked and loaded. They don't really spend any time on JV. They might wrestle some JV matches. They're getting right in that varsity room. And then we have that other channel of that freshman football player or freshman out the hallway. So one thing that I think we do well as a team, and Nick and we have amazing assistants, Terry Avery and Matt Westbay, and a bunch of parents that really kill it, is getting those kids. We have the ability to get those kids and try to get those kids to the same level as those club kids within 4 years. And as a coach, you know, I love coaching high level kids when they come in. That's amazing. But there's a kind of a pride that you take in and taking that kid out the hallway as a freshman and get him a state medal around his neck senior year.
That's awesome.
I think right now we're having an ability to kind of run both through the program simultaneously. And sometimes that's difficult, and that means separate practices. So it's a lot of time out of me and Nick's day running two practices, one advanced, one beginner.
Is it typical? Is it typical that the club coaches are also the high school coaches? Or is it?
No,
I know, like with Lake Highland Prep with you guys, that's got to be pretty cool to have both worlds there. But is that typical around the country? Is that typical that mostly the wrestling club?
I think like that's why like you gotta thank guys like Connor Beebe and the guys at Top Gun and those guys. I mean, I wish there was more things around in Pinellas County, so there was more supplementation into the high schools, more channels into the high schools with kids with wrestling ability. But Nick and I, we're both a little bit control freaks, so I like to have my hands on in the club. But I do have amazing assistants that some of which probably know more wrestling than me.
But, as kids that came through wrestling and now adult coaches, talk about the benefits of having your coach be the club coach and the high school coach. Because I know a lot of times you're seeing a kid might have a club coach and that club coach is teaching him certain things. And then he gets to his high school coach and maybe the high school coach is saying, no, we do it this way.
Double-edged sword there. That's a tough one. Double-edged sword. You want to maximize a kid's potential without deconstructing what you're doing in the room. And if what you're doing is working. So you need I think every good coach understands that there has to be a set of basics. And if you have it's trust factor, man. If you know that this coach is going to support your system, your club coach or whatever, your middle school coach, then there probably won't be that many issues. But if it's like somebody that's some rogue coming in promising like state medals and, you know, take away, Matt.
Yeah. Like, I know my son's coaches would tell me when last summer and spring and fall, when I would take Daniel to stuff, they were like, hey, just keep us in the loop with everything. Send us videos of him. We want to see how he's doing. Want to see what he's learning so that when he got back to them, they can build on that instead of not.
I think that's one thing. Me and Nick don't really have a whole lot of egos. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So like I was saying before, especially in the preseason, like this preseason, we had BB, we had Kevin Nordstrom, we had Mike Cardwell, we had
Kevin will be on next week.
Jameel Bryant, Steve Hall's worked with the kids like most of the year round, but
coach that kid.
Hey, so Ryan,
Bartman,
listen, guys, Ryan LeBlanc is watching right now. He's the assistant coach at App State. Hey, if you haven't taken your kids to his camp, I took it last year. His camp is awesome. And you know what? You can go fishing while the kids go to camp.
Yeah.
But I think having more eyes and more wrestling knowledge in the room is just going to make your room better. So we have a system, you know, especially a drill system that we use in practice. But I think there's osmosis in wrestling, and the more wrestling the kids are exposed to, and the more culture of wrestling the kids are exposed to, the better they're going to get.
You have to have a student mentality. So I think that's the easiest way to answer that is if you have a student mentality and there was a time when there's an old school mentality of like, oh, I teach you my wrestling and this is the only way to do it. And then you find out that, there's more than one way to open a door. If you don't have a student mentality in wrestling, you are never going to achieve your full potential without a doubt.
Well, that's
I only do front headlock.
Excuse me. So I am a parent of a kid that, I've kind of had him in the high school room a little bit and he's just learning, but I can't really afford to put him in a club, but I really want him to experience that to get better. What does Kane's Club offer that can tell a parent, hey, look, we got you, we'll help you out.
I don't think I've ever had a kid denied of the club or camp or gear because of money. We'll make it work.
No way, man.
And we're lucky enough to have amazing parent support that, the network of the parents goes deep. So it's never been an issue.
That's the cool thing about Palm Harbor too, is, it's a really wealthy area. Don't get me wrong, but wrestling draws the same types of kids, like little brawlers, street kids, kids that come from families that don't have a lot of money. The kids that have a lot of money, typically they're playing other sports. They're not wrestling. So
parents will drive them to a good club. Look at you guys, bring your kids. I see you guys come in a big van and you guys come up to Orlando and you hit the clubs up here. I see kids coming from Ocala and Georgia. So people are driving to get to these good clubs, just like people come to your club. So I'm sure there's kids in some rural areas that aren't. And that's what I wanted to ask, because I know there's parents in the wrestling room that have reached out to us, to Ricky already, that are going through some struggles right now that he's trying to help. So, I liked asking that question because I think when they're starting to cut expense right now as parents, but they're
wrestling's going to be one of the first thing that goes, right?
I've never denied a kid from money. Plus, our club is relatively cheap. We charge like $100, and it covers 3 months of wrestling, a minimum of 2 days.
And as a parent, it just breaks your heart because, like, for me, I changed my whole entire life to make sure that they could do what they wanted to do. So, but Travis Bates is watching with you. Bring them on camera. Who's Travis Bates?
Camera?
Travis is one of the dads of 2 of our youth wrestlers. He's really supportive. He runs a lot of we have like Saturday rumbles in the room or weekday rumbles. He's really involved. He's a great.
I don't know if I can bring him. I know when you're usually on Facebook, you can bring someone on camera. I've never tried to bring someone on camera when I'm on Zoom and Facebook. I don't know. Let's try. Bring him. It says their friends won't be able to watch this live video unless they're in your selected. I don't know what that means, but
he's giving you instructions. Trust him. He knows what he's doing.
I have no idea what I'm doing. This is my 3rd week with Zoom.
He's lying.
Travis is a coach that doesn't want to be called a coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he lurks in the shadows and he's like, giving advice.
I don't know. Tell these guys. Oh, Ricky Marcus, man, tell these guys I love what they're doing and to keep up the great work.
Yeah,
cool. Thank you.
So I don't know how to get him on. If you guys want to talk to Travis, I can. If he,
no, it's okay.
Travis, if you
text me if you want.
Yeah. If you text me your email 407-414-1137, I'll send you the link. You can come on and rave about these guys and their club.
He'd probably just make fun of us.
Yeah, he would make fun of us. Yeah, they just call us ugly.
Yeah,
because I'm learning. I've got another platform where I'm trying to, just in case when Zoom goes south,
overload
something up. But all right, so I don't know how to do that. Sorry, buddy. If you want to come on, like I said, shoot me a text and I'll send you a link. And anybody, by the way, if you ever want to come in and talk to your coaches, shout out your coaches. Yeah, I'm sure they don't mind. But so great. Yeah, Ricky said you guys are doing great things down there. And then now that I saw your logo, I remember always seeing the U at the state tournament, which is awesome.
Rip off.
So that's good. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know you were talking about your program.
Another thing, I think our high school schedule during the year, we have a very competitive schedule. I think we go down to Miami for the District 16 duels. We go to Haggerty duels. We we really put the miles in and travel
Yeah.
the state as a high school team. I mean, I know there's a lot of teams that travel out of the state. We want to be one of those teams. You know, our goal as a program, you know, me and Nick and the rest of the coaches, is we want to. I feel like we're kind of getting to the top 10, and we want to get to that top 5. You know, we want to be competitive with the Kissimmee and the like Gibson and the South Dade and the Charlotte. And you know, it's a big goal, but it's a goal that you know, we're young coaches. And
So you guys are 3A.
Yeah,
3A.
we're 3A.
Yep.
And we have a.
That's a tough schedule, right?
Yeah,
Real
they're
tough
all tough.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. They're all
Yeah.
tough in their own ways.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure. Absolutely. That's an argument that never sleeps. But
Yeah.
but look, man, you get in the top 10 in any of those divisions, you know, you're doing something right. So
So
that's
talk about the 3 kids you had this year that came through your club program, came through your high school program, and now all 3 of them are state placers, and one of them lost in the finals. I don't know to who, but go ahead.
He lost to Kodo from South Day. That's Dylan Sparkman.
Yeah.
He's had a bunch of coaches over the years from when he was little, from Steve Hall, Mark Prince, myself, Nick, Brad Stankovich. Like, your kid's been coached by a lot of people. He regularly travels over to Jesuit to train with Mason and the Tiger Wrestling guys. But he is an amazing athlete, amazing student. He works really, really hard. He's a leader in the room. And I think he turned a corner this year mentally. I think he really wanted it when he got to the state tournament, and he made his.
He had the attitude right, man. You know, the first time you go to state, it's you don't know what to expect. You got that, even as much preparation, walking under those lights and that big atmosphere, and then getting back there, he was chilled out. He had the right attitude. Second time around, you know, like, just, this is where I belong. This is where I need to be. This is my goals. I'm having fun, and and he killed it at state. So totally different attitude switch. You know, that happens with maturity, but
Computer there we go. I thought I had it plugged in and then it dimmed out on me, and that means it's about to go inside.
He really made a lot of coaches that have been involved with him really proud. So it made me proud, and he's hungry to get a state title next year. We're working on it.
Good. So he's not graduating. What year is he?
Junior.
no, junior.
Cool. So now you had 2 other wrestlers. You had 2 other wrestlers place, right?
Yeah. Then we had David Pagano at 170. David, his family moved to Palm Harbor over the summer, and he's just a workhorse kid. Really, really, really gifted in the weight room. A real athlete. Really good driller in the room. Works super hard. Great student. He just pushed himself further this year. Ended up taking 5th at once in a really, really deep weight class.
Really deep weight class, and losing one of those matches really kind of put him in a longer road type situation
Lost his first match.
where a lot of wrestlers would have just been like, well, now I'm not in it, so whatever, you know. You get that attitude sometimes. I can't win a state championship, then ooh. And he knew that he had some tough matches, especially the South Dade one that he had lost to, coming back and having to wrestle him. And
That's awesome. Now I had a call. I had a call with Ricky the other day where I shouted out a bunch of kids that are like the Who's Next in Florida, over at the Canes Wrestling Club. Who should we expect to see next coming out of your middle school program?
The middle school, we got some real tough middle schoolers coming up. We have Titus Herron. He's 8th grader coming up, who came here from Tennessee a few years ago. He's pretty tough. His brother was like a state runner-up in Tennessee a few years ago. He's just a hard worker. You know, doesn't miss practice. He's real fun in the room. He's creative. He'll definitely be an asset to us. We have Caleb Tackett, who's an 8th grader. There's a hard-nosed kid, real tough. A lot of our high school kids have a hard time hanging with him. We have Claire. Claire is an extremely well-rounded wrestler. She's got a real strong judo background since she was like a very young child, like 5 or 6 years old. And she'll be in the program. And there's I think 2 or 3 other 8th graders that kind of more beginner, but they'll, you know, by the time we're done, they'll be solid.
Yeah.
So in the history of Palm Harbor wrestling, I don't know how long it's been there, but how many state champions have they had?
Well, they've had 2 multiple-time state champions.
Jared Prince was a 3-time state place winner, and Connor Prince was a 2-time, or 3-time state champion. Connor was a 2-time.
Who's the next state champ that comes out of the Canes?
Could be a lot, man.
We're superstitious.
We want
Fingers crossed.
Dylan to do his thing.
We want them all to do it.
Our heavyweight, Grant Glazin, he placed fifth this year. He keeps getting better and better. We have 106 to 285 is really a hardworking kids. What's one thing about our room is, and I've been around wrestling for a while, and there's not that gloomy, I don't want to drill today, I don't want to practice today feeling in a room. It's a feeling of excitement and hunger, and the kids want to get after it. I think that's
all year, and that's so hard to have, especially the schedule that we ran this year. You get that little bit of a lull around Christmas time, and then trying to fire those kids back up a lot of times after Christmas. And you start to get sick. There might be some injuries that are nagging. We were not immune to that. We had that like every other team, but the attitude was so workable. The kids were a really special group, and they know how hard they need to get pushed to get there. And they wanted that from us. And dude, that is so important. Makes your job as a coach so much better. It is.
Well, that's awesome.
They want to work for you.
I'm hoping that once all this clears, we get to travel around again. We get to see everybody again. And I don't know what the rules are. I know we were getting an email already from CFWA telling us that they're making plans on when everybody gets reopened. I'm sure you guys have plans.
Yeah.
Colin Palmer was talking about how he's already ordered the heat thermometer, and he's not sure if they're only going to allow 10 kids in the room at one time.
Yeah.
So I guess you guys are probably hearing a lot of the same things, and
I
parents
think
going to have to stay in the cars,
The biggest question right now is for us, and I'm sure a bunch of coaches across the state, either they might reopen business, but will they allow us in the school? That's the big question,
Very weird. There's so much liability issues right now that everybody's worried about, so they're trying to play it so safe that
every district will be different, I'm sure, but they could. I mean, you could have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, martial arts schools all open up, in May or June, but will the schools come out and take the risk of allowing us into the?
If one, you got to think about it from their standpoint. They think, calculator. So if there is one kid in any sport that gets COVID, that is, as terrible as that sounds, that's it, man. That's all it's going to take. So nobody wants to be that school district. Nobody wants to be that sport. Certainly don't want to be that coach. That is,
So Canes Club for a while might be out of your garage, huh?
No comment.
No comment. You understand. I think everybody's a coach right now is and listening to it, gets it. They get it. It's like wrestling.
I think
it
kills us. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody I talk to obviously is hungry to get back into the rooms. And
my wife is sick of me talking about it.
Me as a parent, I miss just sitting out in the truck in the parking lot. I mean, it's just all sorts of good stuff. But hey, if I can ever help in any way, if you ever want to come on and talk, if you guys are getting close to getting back open, if you guys are going off to tournaments, if you guys are looking for, I know when you guys are going off to dual teams like Disney's and Nationals and things like that, I always see people texting, hey, I need a 106 or a 142 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's jump on. Let's make a call out. Let's see if we can get you those kids together. And
sure.
I'm glad to get to meet you guys.
We have a Facebook page, Canes Wrestling Club. Check us out. My number's all over there. It's easy to get in contact.
Yeah, put your link in the comments. And I also shared. I usually try to share with other wrestling groups. So I kind of, when we were on, and sometimes we get off, but while we were on, I was sharing it with about 8 or 10 other wrestling groups that are on Facebook, so that you get seen, by everybody, not just Florida Wrestling Room, even though the Florida Wrestling Room has almost 9,000 now.
Yeah.
But there's other rooms. I shared it to the New Jersey Wrestling Room or something.
Yeah.
People come down, right, from New York for the spring, for the summer, whatever. They probably don't know where they can work out. You see messages all the time coming out. Hey,
we had a middle school kid from
Connecticut,
Ohio that came in the room over the summer. Whew,
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah.
Real
very
tough.
tough. Yeah, very tough.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Good luck with the Canes Club in Palm Harbor, and Now I know who's got the canes on their chest when I see you.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah,
baby.
we got
That's
the,
it. You.
I got 1 second. We got new shirts.
Gotta plug his shirts.
Got the U.
Look at that. Man, that's awesome. I wish I was part of the Canes Club so I could wear
That's
that.
cool. That's cool. Yeah.
I'll send you one.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
guys, you
man.
take it easy,
Thanks a
man.
lot. Bye, guys.